The whistle blows, the replay loops in slow motion, and within 30 seconds, millions of people are typing the exact same word: fixed. The standard response from pundits and officials is always the same. They'll tell you it's a conspiracy theory, sour grapes from fans who simply can't accept their team lost. But that suspicion didn't come from nowhere. Fans developed this reflex for a reason. They learned it from a long history of actual, documented betrayal. In May 2015, Swiss police walked into a 5-star hotel in Zurich at dawn to arrest top FIFA officials. The U.S. Department of Justice unsealed an indictment describing decades of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering, alleging over $150 million in bribes. This was a federal prosecution that reached the very top of the sport. Officials pleaded guilty. Sepp Blatter, the president of FIFA for 17 years, resigned days after being re-elected and was later banned from football, alongside revelations of bribes tied directly to World Cup hosting rights. The logic here is straightforward. Once you learn the executives running the sport took bribes to decide where the World Cup is played, it becomes remarkably hard to believe those same forces would never try to influence what actually happens on the pitch. Actual, literal match fixing does happen, but fans looking for a script at the World Cup final are staring at the wrong games. We have the court cases to prove it. In Germany, referee Robert Heuser was convicted and jailed for fixing matches he officiated, placing bets on the exact outcomes he was controlling with his own whistle. This chart shows the true economics of fixing. You don't try to bribe a millionaire superstar in front of a billion viewers. Instead, criminals target low-paid officials in obscure, untelevised, lower-league matches. The bribe is small, the betting market pays out the same, and the oversight is entirely non-existent. So yes, intentional manipulation exists, but it operates as a dark, lower-tier economy. It doesn't explain the highly visible, controversial decisions in elite matches that constantly enrage the global fanbase. To understand how those elite matches get tilted, we have to look past criminal bribery and examine basic human psychology. Referees can produce unfair outcomes without a single corrupt intention. This dual-axis line chart illustrates a massive natural experiment, the COVID-19 era. Before the pandemic, academic research consistently measured a noticeable home team advantage in favorable calls and stoppage time. But as this data shows, when matches were played in empty stadiums, that century-old bias drastically shrunk. The explanation is psychological. 60,000 screaming fans create an immediate social pressure. The human brain unconsciously tries to appease that crowd to avoid conflict, leading officials to whistle slightly differently depending on who is making the noise. Elite matches are constantly being pushed in specific directions by psychological forces that the referees themselves don't even realize they are experiencing. Then there are the financial realities. The global broadcasting and sponsorship ecosystem of football relies heavily on massive teams and star players advancing deep into tournaments. The structural incentives clearly prefer certain outcomes. To counter human error and unfairness, the sport introduced Video Assistant Referee, or VAR. It was sold to the public as the tool for objective justice, but it caused a psychological backfire. Before, a bad call was a human mistake. Today, when a highly questionable decision survives multiple slow-motion angles, reviewed by several officials in a dedicated video room, fans can no longer accept it as a simple accident. Instead of providing objective justice, modern technology combined with systemic financial favoritism has transformed every error into a calculated preference. When a room of experts scrutinizes a replay and still gets it wrong, a mistake starts to look like intent. To get the full picture, we have to turn the lens away from the pitch and look directly at the viewer. Human social psychology makes it almost impossible to remain neutral when watching your own group. Your brain's filtering system prioritizes your team's success over objective observation. A classic 1954 study demonstrated this. Two opposing fan bases watched the same game film and reported vastly different counts of the exact same event. They didn't just disagree on the calls. They literally failed to register the fouls committed by their own side while seeing every infraction by the opponent. Layer on a lifetime of confirmation bias, and the effect sets in. A fan permanently logs every controversial call against their team as hard evidence of a rigged system, while entirely forgetting the lucky breaks they received along the way. The feeling of a rigged game is partially a psychological illusion. It is amplified by brains that are unable to watch their own tribe with neutrality. Are elite matches secretly scripted in advance by a shadowy FIFA council? The practical problem with that theory is the scale. It would require perfect silence from thousands of players, officials, and broadcasters, something that is practically impossible to maintain. But the absence of a literal script does not mean the sport is clean. The system is demonstrably compromised by executive crime, unconscious referee bias, and intense systemic financial pressure. The basic mechanics of the sport, the players, the ball, and the pitch, haven't changed, but the layer of administrative corruption and unconscious bias has created a filter of suspicion that touches every whistle. You might be wrong about an individual match being mathematically rigged against your team, but your overarching lack of trust, that is a perfectly rational, justified response to a deep